All right, let's keep you up to speed with the big story in the world of tech. A judge has ruled that Google's search engine has been illegally exploiting its dominance to squash competition, to stifle innovation in a decision that is going to completely shake and hobble one of the world's best-known companies. In fact, it's been highly anticipated, and this is coming nearly a year after the start of the trial that had pit the U.S. Justice Department against Google in one of the biggest antitrust showdowns that have taken place in the quarter of a century. So let's understand how this story has really played out. My colleague joining in with all the details.
Yes, in fact, a landmark judgment by a U.S. court has ruled that Google has held illegal monopoly in the text and search advertising space. And in its ruling, the court weighed in on Google's exclusive search arrangements on Android and Apple's devices, stating that they cemented Google's dominance in the search market. Now, while Google is expected to appeal against that decision, but analysts say that Apple's deal with Google could be under threat. It could involve terminating Apple's agreement, which makes it its search engine a default on Apple's devices. Now, Google has agreements with several other tech companies as well. In fact, analysts estimate that Google pays Apple $20 billion annually, or about 36% of what it earns from search advertising. For the privilege. In fact, and if the deal is indeed terminated, then Apple could take about 4 to 6% hits as far as its profits are concerned, and that's what the industry is estimating. Now, while that stage is set for determining remedies that are required to maintain fair competition, and that will become clearer in the next few hearings, but there could be delays as well. But if Google complies, one likely outcome could be that the company no longer pays for default placement, or companies like Apple will proactively prompt users to select the search engine of their choice rather than setting a default and not allowing consumers to make changes as far as these settings are concerned. But in that case, analysts expect Apple to speed up its AI-powered search devices and shift away from exclusive deals that would help Apple ward off regulatory scrutiny.
Let's also connect then with Ray Wang. He's principal analyst and founder at Constellation Research to talk a little bit more about this historic decision that has been taken. And Ray, highly anticipated, and as we were discussing, it's come nearly after a year at the start of this trial. Given the fact that the judge has said that Google's search engine has been illegally exploiting dominance, they're trying to squash competition, is this coming as a huge surprise? What's your reading?
Yeah, this is a very interesting case. The judge says Google's violated Section 2 of the Sherman Antitrust Act, and basically the exclusive deals with Apple and other mobile device firms for dominance on search has been seen as a monopoly. And so these exclusive contracts are there for search. And so the judge did say Google was the best at search, but the bottom line is customers do prefer Google over others. So I'm not sure if Apple would ever pay Microsoft Bing for their search capabilities, or if there's a second player that they would go to, like DuckDuckGo. So it's a very interesting challenge when the market is saying, look, we're paying for the best product. We're happy to pay for the best product. We haven't complained about this. So it's an interesting ruling, but it is one of the first antitrust wins for the Biden administration.
So, I mean, this is going to come as a huge setback, Ray, for Google, its parent Alphabet, because they have from the get-go been arguing that their popularity has only stemmed from, customers' preference, etc. So what kind of a setback does this mean for Alphabet?
Well, I don't think we should jump to any conclusions yet, because they are going to appeal this. And I understand that depending on who is president or what happens in the next group, this probably is a case that would probably have different sets of merits. And I think, at the moment, if you say the case is complete and the appeal is denied, then yes, the winner is probably Microsoft, which hasn't done much with Bing. They haven't done anything to invest, but now can play in this space. And Apple is the biggest loser because it will lose billions in search access on the iPhones being paid by Microsoft. So this is a very interesting case, mostly because the dynamics of search are being changed with AI, and traditional search is being commoditized by AI. So the market is about to be disrupted by AI. So the judge is a bit outdated in terms of his ruling because he doesn't really understand, or I would say it doesn't seem like he understands how competitive this market is.
And how do you see this playing out, Ray? Do you think that Google is now going to appeal the decision? Is it going to be a long, drawn-out battle, or is it sort of now cornered and doesn't have much of a choice?
Oh, I definitely think they will appeal this decision, and it will be a long, drawn-out battle. The merits of the case as a Sherman Antitrust Act are probably weak at best. It would be different if Apple said, I didn't want to pay Google this amount of money for, or get paid by Google this amount of money for exclusive search, and our consumers were upset. The gold standard of antitrust in the US has really been, has the consumer been harmed? And in this case, it's pretty easy to answer. The consumer has not been harmed because using Bing search would be more harmful than being on Google. So this is why this case, by the merits, does not make sense.
Right, and Ray, given the fact that you also have this at a time when it is very close to the US election outcome, Donald Trump, has been escalating his efforts to really rein in big tech's power during Joe Biden's administration. With what could potentially emerge in the US election if Donald Trump were to come to power, how do you think this is really going to impact big tech?
It's a great question. I think the difference between Biden's administration and Kamala Harris versus Trump and what they would do is Trump is more about less regulation. Both sides dislike big tech. They don't trust big tech. But I would say that in cases of M&A and cases of antitrust, Lina Khan has been extremely strict, along with the FTC has been extremely strict. And in a Trump administration, you would definitely see a lot more mergers and acquisitions, a lot more laissez-faire regulation. And a deal like this or a case like this would probably easily be appealed as opposed to what would happen in a Harris administration with Lina Khan.
Right, and then there's also reports of, a potential remedy for Google to avoid these antitrust actions involve terminating the agreement with Apple, which makes the search engine a default on Apple devices. How are you looking at this, and what do you think it could potentially mean?
The easiest position at this moment is to provide an option and allow users to say, I will choose Google, I will choose DuckDuckGo, I'll choose Bing, I'll choose another search engine, and then let the chips fall into play. Apple could easily say, for every person that decides to go to Google, you pay us this much. For DuckDuckGo, you pay us this much. And for Microsoft, you pay us this much. And that would probably easily create a remedy for that situation.